Good evening and welcome to the Planning Board meeting, the 37th meeting of fiscal year 2024. At this time, I'd like to now call the meeting to order. If we can begin by introducing the members of the board and our staff. First, we'll go
Cheryl Tagayas, Secretary.
Maggie Oldfield, member.
Jim Davis, member.
And on Zoom, we have Sean.
Sean Fahey, member.
And Meredith Hall serving as chair. And staff this evening, we have on Zoom Tim.
Tim Zerwinski, Director of Planning and Community Development.
Cheyenne.
Diane Frazier, Assistant Director of Planning and Community Development.
And with us in the room, we have Julia.
Julia Getman, clerk.
Great. Thank you so much. At this time, we are actually going to move up. We have an item of old business number 5. We're actually, for the convenience of the residents, going to move that to the earlier, to move that up on the agenda. The item would be executive session pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, discussion strategy with respect to litigation entitled Bacardi et al. Versus Milton Planning Board et al., Norfolk Superior Court, Civil Action Number 2482 CV 00515. At this time, I would like to move to make a motion to adjourn from open session into executive session for a discussion regarding strategy with respect to litigation entitled Bacardi et al. Versus Milton Planning Board et al., Norfolk Superior Court, Civil Action Number 2482 CV 00515, based on my belief that discussion of this matter in open session may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the Planning Board. The Planning Board will return to open session following Executive Board to complete our meeting and hold first citizen speak. If I could have a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. And we need to do a roll call because Sean is on Zoom. Sean?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you, and we will be back shortly. Okay, and we are back. Moving on to our administrative items. We first have approval of minutes. There's one set of minutes, but I don't know if that's the one that you sent out today. That I'm not sure if members have had a chance to look at.
It was May 9th, I think that went out.
May 9th.
No,
Yes,
May
that was-
6th, I'm sorry,
Yeah, I
May
looked
6th.
I looked at May 6th and I'm okay with them.
May 6th.
Yes, that was a short.
Shorty.
Yes. And I had read that and I was good with those.
Same here.
All right, so
I'm
then
good
I'll
with May
make a
6th.
motion to approve the minutes of the May 6th meeting as amended.
Second.
Roll call. All right. Jim?
Yes.
Maggie?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes?
Sean?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you. Those minutes are approved. And the next item is our discussion of next meeting dates. And as I was looking, I realized I actually have a conflict on the 11th, which is when we were supposed to have Josh come back. He cannot come on the 10th. He can come any day the following week. And my apologies for this, that I don't know if members, or if Tim, did you happen to ask about either Monday or Tuesday?
He's apparently out of town until I think the 11th is the first day that he's back. So it's the 11th or the following week for him.
How does that following week look? That would be a back-to-back meeting, week to week, being July 11th and then the 20, or excuse me, it would be that following week and the 25th. So it would be the 18th possibly?
I'm sorry, 11th and I'm sorry,
So instead of the 11th, we would meet on the 18th
18th and the 25th?
and the 25th?
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
That's okay with me.
All right. Sean, would that work for you?
I think I can make it work. I have a meeting, but I think I can, on the 18th I do, so I think I can make it work though.
Okay. And Tim, that would be okay with you?
I think so. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
see anything.
All right.
So on the 18th, it would be Josh Fiala from MAPC?
Yes, and that would be the East Milton overlay.
Okay, so I just, can I just add something about that?
Sure.
We had a master plan implementation committee meeting last night, and we were talking about the initiatives that the committee had funded and just wanting to get updates on those things. And this one came up. So, one way to handle it is to invite the MPIC members to that meeting so that they can hear directly from Josh. And if that's the case, then we'd have to post it, for that. So as a joint meeting, at least for that portion. So is that okay with everyone?
I would be fine with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea.
So Cheyenne, can you send an email out, or I can send it out to alert members to the 18th?
And invite the master plan implementation
Yeah.
committee to attend.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. All right, thank you all for that. So it would be, again, the 18th and the 25th of July. The next meeting dates. Okay. And Tim, an update if you'd like to provide? The Director of Planning and Community Development.
The main item that I was going to update on actually became an agenda item. So we'll talk about that a little bit later regarding the Milton Marketplace site plan approval. We'll talk about that when it comes up on the agenda. Okay. But the other thing I just wanted to mention, the planning board had heard an A&R application for 95 Dexter Street. And the request had been to update that plan with some notations that we typically have on A&R plans. I just got that updated plan from the surveyor yesterday afternoon. So whenever we decide to meet on July 18th, that'll be back on the agenda, hopefully for a quick thumbs up from the board, and we'll get that one on its way over to the applicants. So preview of coming attractions. But that's it for now.
Okay.
Tim, can I just go back to that for a moment? My recollection, and I think it says it in the meeting minutes, that we conveyed the approval of that to you. Does that need to come back, or is there a reason to come back? But that's my recollection from the meeting, and that's what's in the minutes also.
I thought that we wanted to see the plan with the updated notation. I'll go back and check the tape. Just to double check on that. And
Okay.
so if it winds up not being on the agenda, then that's why. We'll take care of that on a staff level. But I thought that we had wanted to just see it again, just to make sure that everything was on there. But we'll double check on that.
Yeah, if the other members felt that that's what we said, please, I don't want to prevent that, but that was my recollection.
Yeah, I thought it was just to make sure those hash marks that are sort of splitting the lot in thirds didn't mean anything. There wasn't an easement or anything, but other than that, I thought it was good to go.
Yeah, I did think they were going to come back to us one
They
more
did?
time. I think we were going to have them just.
I think
final.
the applicants, as they left, said, we have to come back.
Yeah, I do
Right?
remember that. And I said, we'll be quick,
Remember that?
but yeah, we'll be brief, but I think we did, yeah.
Okay.
All right,
We
great.
would have to let them know of that date change, obviously.
And Tim, I just was going to mention the A&R that we approved, which was on the Canton-Milton line, the property on Brush Hill Road. The Canton Planning Board met last night, and I don't know what their decision was. Just curious if you might want to check in, I don't know, with the town of Canton and see what decision they made, because it was contingent upon both towns approving the A&R.
We'll check in. Cheyenne, you talked with one of the Canton residents who had been involved in that, and as of that conversation, I think it was 2 days ago, because the planning board had heard that at a previous meeting, and I guess continued it. I didn't know they were meeting last night, so we'll check in on them.
Yeah. If they made a decision, I don't know if they made a final decision or if continued their public hearing, but they were meeting on it last night. So just curious what they decided. Okay, great. So we can now move next to, oh, there you go. We can now move on to Citizen Speak. We don't have anyone in the public. Is there anyone, Sean, on Zoom, or Tim, do you see anyone?
If anyone out there would like to speak, feel free to put your hands up, but I don't see any hands right now.
3 attendees, no hands raised.
Okay, great. It's a big TV night, so. So then we'll move on to our new business discussion of the planning board approach to reviewing and commenting on CPA applications. And we put this on because we've had a couple of people with different projects who would like to come before us. I know we talked last year about, and we welcome anyone to come before us and talk about their projects, but in writing letters of recommendation, we just want to be consistent with different folks. Cheryl, you're now on it, so you can see some people come in with letters, some don't. It doesn't mean that one project is necessarily superior to another, but because a lot of these projects are all really good projects. So does anyone on the board have a sense? I don't know if the CPC committee has talked about this, because it had been in the past that they suggested that people get letters, and so some people really actively got letters, others didn't really know and didn't have as many. But
The CPC met while I was away also, so I don't know if it came up at that meeting, but Julia was there. No. With the new chair, I don't think there's been an emphasis on getting the letters this year. I think there's a lot more applicants. So it's a lot. It would be a lot. Like I think I said in the past that if one applicant's afforded an opportunity, they all should be. And there's 20 some applicants this time. So it would be a lot. And we kind of, it would almost in some way be a little bit duplicative of the review that the committee does, because the committee first has to review whether they meet the criteria, eligibility criteria. And then after that, just sort of weigh, there's a lot more requests than there's funding available. So then it becomes a decision, based on, how ready is the project? We've talked about making sure that there's some distribution across town in terms of if it's recreational, if it's a repeat applicant or they're new applicants, just kind of, because the committee's, fairly new and now having some applicants from the first round that we're seeking updates, how quickly are they moving ahead, because we want to see things happen. So I guess there's a lot that goes into it in terms of what the recommendation would be. And of course the committee thinks that they're all, valid. I mean, even if they don't meet the eligibility, they're still, interesting and wonderful ideas that people are presenting. So it's, I don't think there's the emphasis on the letters so much. I think some people have gotten them because maybe they were, kind of advised to do so in prior applications. But I can ask at the next meeting, if the committee's going to take some kind of position, to give more support to somebody, an applicant who has these letters. I wouldn't want to disadvantage someone either. So why don't we, if that's okay, I can ask at the next meeting, and we can bring it up, because it's going to be now. So the eligibility phase is now, it's finishing, and then they'll be invited, those who are deemed eligible, which is most of them, but not all. They'll be invited to submit a more complete proposal, and then we'll start to review those. So it's not as if we're making any decisions yet. And there's still opportunity, like last year, even once we started reviewing the applications, we asked for more material and they were able to submit it. So there's, Julia, how those next round is going to be due when?
September 27th.
Yeah, September 27th.
So the applicants would come to us looking for our support, but we don't necessarily vet them? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, that's the confusion.
Confusing.
That's why it's
But
confusing.
we've written, support for, Andy D'Amato came, for example, for the watering station at Andrews Park, and we wrote a letter on that behalf. There have been others. Sean has someone who has wanted to, he recommended, or asked if they could come forth, and it's a really incredible project. And then someone else approached also, somebody who's also put in another application. And I've told both of them that they can come to our next meeting, so I still would honor, and welcome anyone to come, talk about what their projects are. But it's because the CPC weighs in on it, do we want to add letters is I guess, our decision.
So I think, oh, sorry, Maggie.
Oh, no. So I would think that maybe the only projects or proposals that may want to come to us is land use, that we might have an opinion on, even though Andy D'Amato, came for the water, that doesn't change the use of the park. He's adding an amenity to the park, so it's not changing
Yeah, but what if
the
it's
park
building?
status. So that's, so if
restrooms or
it's,
something?
so that's what my thinking is. If it's a change of something on the use of land, because we're the planning board and we're supposed to be looking at all the parcels in
A lot
town.
of them are on land.
And
Maybe, I don't know.
There's a lot of parks and rec in these applications. There's a couple.
so
that
maybe
are
that's
more
like,
environmental.
maybe we don't really have a say in parks and recs.
So it's really the Parks Department. So, and I'm the representative for the board, and they have, the Parks Department has a representative, Affordable Housing Trust has a representative, the Housing Authority has a representative, so there's lots of, Concom has a representative. So there's lots of, so like the Historical Commission has a representative. So each category, the three categories, the open space and parks and recreation, the historic preservation and affordable housing, have people there that are representative of the boards. So it seems like if if we do it, then do we ask Concom to do it, and do we ask Affordable Housing Trust to do it? And it seems like it's going to become a lot longer process, for the
I would think it would be a
CPC.
shorter process because they're only asking the board that's relevant so they don't have to come to us for the water cooler, so they go to the parks and recs. So the applicants are saving time.
Streamlining.
They're streamlining it. So the only proposals that would come to us for our opinion is if it affects land. So like the DCR project, if the town of Milton wants to lease it, that I think should come to the planning board because that is a land use issue. Or if there's another parcel of land that, we want to look at, I think it should come to us.
So for example, that one is adjacent to land that the town owns that's under the parks jurisdiction. So they're, the idea there that they had was like recreational use, so it would more be parks. So.
But it's adjacent to it. It is not.
No, the idea that they
Is-
have was to use
Yeah.
to tie it together for a community recreational kind of purpose. But, you'd have to look at I'd like to suggest that I take it back because, every other representative should also have a similar kind of.
Because I know the historical commission
yeah.
gets asked to weigh on things that may have historic stone walls or a historic
Right.
garden.
So that I do understand, but the
Right.
historic department commission
commission.
didn't weigh in on the water cooler. My
Right,
guess was.
that's what, to your point, that's
Yeah.
what I was saying, yeah.
Yeah.
But
why don't you take it
I
back?
think the committee should have a position on it because there's representatives from each
I
of
think
the
so, too.
boards.
Yeah.
And let the committee come back to each, so Concom would get the same, strategy, historic, et cetera.
Yeah.
So rather than the planning board deciding for itself, the committee. All right, so I'll take it to the committee. And Julie, when's the next meeting? Is it
15th.
the 15th? Okay.
So that'll be before our next meeting, so.
Yes,
Because
okay.
I have told, both,
So if
People
there's an
emailed, I
applicant,
would
so if an applicant has something they're interested in doing on a parcel of land, then I think that's appropriate to come to us.
I imagine that the applicant for the DCR property would come to the planning board. They actually reached out to me about coming
that's
to
one of them.
Advocate.
That's one of
Yeah.
the people I
Yeah, that's okay.
invited to come to our next
Okay,
meeting.
and, and I don't, again, I don't have a problem necessarily. I just have found it a little bit awkward when, like last year, even with Andy D'Amato, it was like, you don't want to prejudice somebody else either, right? So.
That's
anyway.
why we're just wanting to, Tim was saying, we had said last year, we were going to try to find a way to be fair and consistent.
Right, okay.
I
So,
would think we listen to everybody and then just either render an
Yeah.
opinion or no opinion.
Yeah.
Just say, this doesn't apply to us, so we
And they're all
appreciate
such
your
good
presentation.
projects. It's
Yeah.
really just so hard.
But if somebody would want to come to us, I would imagine we would let them.
And the benefit of people coming here is we are kind of must-see TV. So the town would get an understanding of what
Yeah.
projects are being proposed.
True.
So I don't know what the audience level is like for the CP meetings.
Do they get
They
recorded?
get
Recorded.
but they don't.
They don't get posted?
They're not filmed, they're not like
Okay.
on TV.
So it'd be good to share, yeah. Good,
Yeah.
so.
my only point about it is that, it's a lot of applicants.
I know.
Again, I don't want to prejudice anyone because it does go to town meeting, with the recommendation of the CPC. And it's the CPC's job to review them and make the recommendation. So we don't want to confuse
Right.
folks about what they need to do if they only have so much,
Right.
time and commitment. Like there's playground folks and there's, it's, for some people, like these meetings and making presentations and preparing the materials is all new to them. So just adding another thing for them to do might be, I don't want to discourage anybody, to think that they've got too much work to do.
Well, it wouldn't be mandatory, right? They just come if they want, right? They don't have to come before the planning board and get our letter of recommendation. But
Yeah, but if they think that you've got to get us a letter of support because the next applicant's getting one, you know, it just adds a level of stress to something.
Sounds like college applications.
Great. Okay. Does that sound good, Sean? Is that make sense?
Yeah, certainly. Yep.
Okay. All right. So the next item is the discussion of the letter to Milton Marketplace regarding site plan amendment for the second floor enclosure. Tim, if you want to just give a little background, if you don't mind, that would be great.
Yeah, folks, this is the first time I think that we've met since the select board meeting where this occurred, but there was a presentation from a potential lessee of the former plate space in the Milton Marketplace, giving what was essentially an informational presentation to the select board in anticipation of a future, I assume, common vic license hearing and a liquor license hearing. If you watched that presentation or saw some of the images or saw some of the chatter on social media after, the proposal incorporates into the larger restaurant space the enclosed patio that the planning board had recently approved via a site plan amendment. And this caught several folks' attention, Meredith and Cheryl included. I think everyone remembers the discussion that we had in those public hearings about, what is the purpose of the enclosure? What is the purpose of the secondary means of egress? And I think a big issue that the board had was, are we talking about some type of expanded use in that space, as opposed to sort of the general purpose use of the patio for, people going to the plate, people getting lunch at the fruit center, people just hanging out on the patio, a space for that entire building. A restaurant space kind of encompassing that, combining the plate space and the patio space, is not what the board approved. And so we've had a number of conversations, Meredith and myself and town council, Meredith and Cheryl and myself and town council, and Meredith, and I don't want to speak for her, but she's also been corresponding with the applicant. I've been speaking with Marion McKettrick, who's the attorney for the potential lessee of that space. So there's just been a lot of discussion around, what is the nature of the approval that the planning board gave? Is it consistent with these new proposals that are being put out there? And I think ultimately, what was the planning board misled in the assertions that it got around, what this enclosed space with this second staircase would be used for? Or are we dealing with a situation where, there's been some fluid decision making and, things come up for a business owner and, what was true 6 months ago is no longer true today. But ultimately what we're dealing with is, what is the planning board's role here? And are these proposals consistent with the site plan approval? I don't know if I included it in the meeting materials folder, but I do have a compilation of all of the recent site plan approvals and amendments for this space that the planning board has given. And, it's pretty clear to me that the approved site plans, the plans themselves have a note on them that say that the patio space is for general purpose use for patrons of the Milton Marketplace building. The decision around the enclosure also, notes that, there's going to be a physical enclosure of a space, and the space has typically been used for, the general use of all of the businesses and patrons of the Milton Marketplace. So, where I've landed on all of this, in relation to what is the kind of permitting pipeline for this new proposal, is that there would need to be a further site plan amendment to basically go from 49 seats of general purpose open to all patrons and businesses in the Milton Marketplace to exclusive use for, one business, which is, as far as we know, based on the presentation at the select board, is what's being proposed. And so I think, and I had a conversation with Meredith and town council about this, the other day, and this is kind of now the pitch to the board, is that, a site plan amendment hearing would give the board the opportunity to weigh in on all of the usual issues that it would weigh in on, when we talk about a restaurant use. And the board has done it before. They did it with Abbey Park. They did it with Navara. All of the restaurants around town have gone through a site plan review process, which, the hearings for the physical space today have also gone through that process, but not really with the rigor that you would expect from a restaurant use, because the assertions have been the use isn't changing. We're just putting 4 walls and a roof over it, and attaching a staircase to it. So, there's been a lot of, I think, a lot of questions, a lot of tension, and I think, requesting or informing the potential applicant that the planning board believes that an amendment of the site plan is necessary. Let's talk about getting an application in, I think would kind of hit a little bit of a reset button on a lot of the questions and kind of, issues that have been swirling about, since this news came out. Because again, the planning board, typically weighs in on, the adequacy of the parking and the circulation and, weighing in on all the needs of the potential users of a new business, under site plan review and in addition to all the other physical impacts. The board has not had a chance to do that. There are other opportunities. There'd be a Board of Appeals hearing, there'd be a select board hearing, but really, the planning board has a certain lane in these things that, I think needs to be asserted. As I'm talking, I'm realizing that, there's been a number of side conversations, but hopefully everyone knows what I'm talking about. Because again, this is the first time we've met since a lot of this stuff has gone down. So, understand if this is all very whirlwind. Meredith obviously has been knee deep in this as well, and can probably, answer any questions or provide additional clarity. So I'll leave it at that for now, and we can continue the conversation.
So I don't know if all the members were able to watch the select board meeting. It was the 2 weeks ago, and it was quite a surprise to see that the applicant had come to us and explicitly said that there would be no expansion beyond the 49 seats. A matter of fact, I was so concerned following that the day after we approved the staircase, the Plate announced that their lease was not being renewed, or they had come to an agreement not to renew the lease. Seemed a little bit coincidental to me, and I was really concerned. So I asked the applicant to come back in from 10 Bassett Street and to confirm what we had approved, because we'd verbally approved it, but we hadn't signed off on it yet. Before we signed off, I wanted to make sure, and Cheryl had explicitly asked a number of times, this second egress gives you the opportunity to increase and have an enlarged restaurant or seating area capacity beyond the 49 seats. And we were told that is not the case. This is for the same it's basically enclosing and just an additional access for convenience, but there was no expansion. And then watching the select board, where an incredible proposal with a large bar being proposed, I think 37 seats, very minimal tables, definitely looking for a certain theme. And I respect that everyone has their business, and we want to support our businesses, and that should be said before anything. But to feel misled, and I know things change the decision process, but we explicitly said if there is expansion, you need to come back to us for we need to discuss parking. There's other things that we would weigh in on a site plan approval. So that being said, I feel strongly that they need to come in for an amended site plan. I have concerns about the proposal up there. It's not an application yet, it's a proposal, and it will go before the ZBA and the select board, because beyond just the parking, I have some concerns about how the other businesses will operate on that level, have access to restrooms, have, access to the elevator. There's different, issues that all need to be thought through. So, but I don't know if others have gotten to see that. And Cheryl, you watched that meeting. So, and as an architect, and having asked specifically about that second egress, well, I would love to hear your comments.
Right. I mean, I did contact Meredith right away, and I said, wow, this is really striking, because I did probe, I think, I was sort of asking more than once about it. And I know from being an architect and having clients, they just don't go forward with construction projects on a whim. There's reasons behind it. And that's why I kept asking, did the building department say that you need the second means? Are you looking to expand the seating? So because there had to be a reason to add a stair. And I think you all also probably have been there and seen the stair. What I was concerned about at the bottom of the stair, how you're right on top of that parking space, it came to reality. That is the reality. My fear is the reality now. So I definitely think, if that stair is going to get used a lot, that needs a site plan approval. That needs a review. And that's separate from the things that Meredith said. So, I've been on the board long enough to have reviewed a number of applications here, for this building, and some of them went forward and some of them didn't. And it's wonderful to have the business there. So it's not about trying to be difficult, but we do. I think need to be clear that what our expectations are, and in this case, that I do think it's a different enough use from what we were told that it does need to come back.
Yeah, and I did watch the selectmen's meeting, and I was a little surprised too. But I have a question though. This building is in a residential district, and we are contemplating making it part of our commercial district. Does that affect the review process? Because if it's in the commercial district, would they still have to come to us for site plan approval?
So the question really would be, do they have to go to the Board of Appeal anymore? So, because they would definitely have to come to the planning board.
Yeah.
But now, so Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, my take on, so the first part of Maggie's question, they would still need, generally speaking, irrespective of where you are, the trigger for site plan review is multifamily or 800 square feet or more of change to a commercial building. Now, the 800 square feet of change to this commercial building was the enclosure, right? That's why that came back for site plan amendment. Whether it's in a residential district or a commercial district, doesn't matter. It's the actual work that's being done. So this project, again, irrespective of what, what's going on, would still be, site plan review. Now, whether a change in the underlying zoning would cut out the Board of Appeals, the Fruit Center, the Milton Marketplace, operates under a special permit from the Board of Appeals. That is what they're operating under. And so, I don't know what the process of, if there's a zoning change, you would need to unwind that special permit and then, reapply under, so it'd have to be like a new project there would then be governed by the new zoning. I think because, there's so much in that special permit that has informed, how that thing operates right now. And I don't think an underlying zoning change completely wipes that out. I don't want to speak with 100% authority on that. If that's a real concern, we can obviously talk to town council and get their opinion. But just like anything else, we do overlay zoning all the time. Well, not all the time, but we do it. And that that goes on top of the existing zoning. It doesn't wipe out the existing zoning. It doesn't wipe out the existing approvals under previous zoning. So that would be my instinct on this. But we can obviously follow up on that if that's a concern.
Yeah, because that was the parking is my concern. So in the commercial district, you don't have to provide parking. Or
No, you have to provide
or you
parking in the
provide
commercial
minimal
district.
parking.
I don't think it's minimal parking either. At least
Yeah.
right now, it's not minimal parking.
Yeah, okay, so we wouldn't be, Milton Marketplace, if it became commercial, and maybe this isn't the time for the discussion, but then would they be able to reduce the amount of parking spaces they currently have?
So,
It would
I mean,
become residential.
If it became commercial, so it's residential now,
But they,
and if it became commercial, would they be able to reduce the amount of?
So their parking requirements are handled also at the ZBA
Correct, yes.
currently. And with the restaurants, they all are too, because I think that's is that a requirement in the zoning, Tim, that
talking about
restaurants
the
are
overlay,
handled
not the
by the
40B.
ZBA?
Yeah, overlay, yeah.
I mean, the,
I'd have to go and see if that's a use that has a parking requirement, or if it's there are a number of uses that are considered permissive that kind of go straight to the ZBA for those things. So
I
I'd
think
have to double check on that.
for example, Milton Village overlay, restaurants are handled separately than any other commercial.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that was because that's the way the rest of the zoning is with respect to restaurants. So we'd have to go back and check that. But
I think again to Maggie's question, if there was a change that they proposed, to put up a new building or to change their building somehow under the new zoning, then that would be, that any new parking requirements in that zoning would apply. But just because the zoning overlay is created doesn't change the fact that the existing permit that they have requires a certain amount of parking. So there wouldn't be just a snap change like that. They would need to propose a change under the new zoning, which, potentially could cut into the parking that they have for their existing business. So it's not, there's safeguards there, I guess is what I would say.
Okay.
okay.
So, I mean, I would say that if we approved a general shared space of 49 seats, and now they want to put a restaurant there with a bar, for them to not have to come back to us would kind of undermine the authority of the board, correct? I mean,
It would be nice in a friendly way to invite them back and feel,
I think it requires an amended site plan approval, not just a friendly comeback. If they're going to proceed with that as a use, I know they have other procedures and processes they would have to go through. And sometimes when it requires ZBA and planning board, the two boards kind of work their schedules together. Now you have a liquor license thrown in with the select board, so I don't know how that goes. But I do know that I was made aware by one of our former planning board members about when the liquor license was granted to the plate, or for the use at the plate, there was neighborhood support because of the hours. I mean, apparently the license did have some longer hours, but what was planned, was not into the evening hours because of proximity to residential properties. So, there's a lot of moving pieces here. What goes along with a liquor license and the hours that goes along with that, what the ZBA jurisdiction is and what ours is. But I do think it's different from what the application was for the site plan approval. And so if they do wish to proceed with that use, then I think it requires an amendment.
And so my understanding also with the plate, they had a full liquor license, which was beer and hard alcohol, but they didn't it wasn't fully utilized. I think they might have had like Bloody Marys or something on occasion. But so I think it's different having a business using the full liquor license for a restaurant business for, to your point, Cheryl, longer hours.
Or a bar business.
Yeah, it's a bar business. It's a bar. So that sort of is a little bit of concern too. So now, and again, I don't know the correct process, but do we like withdraw? Is that what we do? Withdraw the approval that was given and they come back with a new one? Or can you even
Tim has an
can you
answer for
even
that.
withdraw?
So the zoning and this is something, keep this in your back pocket for future approvals. The zoning bylaw gives the planning board the right to modify or rescind a site plan approval if it gives itself that right in the decision document. So basically, if the decision says the planning board can modify this, when it wants, you can do that. We have not done that in these site plan approvals, and frankly have not typically done them in many site plan approvals. We may want to, the board may want to think about reserving for itself that right in the future. But I think where we are now, and again, I had a conversation with Marion McKettrick, who's representing, the applicant, for the new space. They are still kind of mapping out their approval kind of pathway. I think they have an idea of what they need. And I think when we talk about writing a letter, I think the suggestion is that, the board articulates why it feels that this applicant needs to come back for an amendment to its site plan. I think, that can be conveyed in conversation. I conveyed as much to Marion when I spoke with her. But I think, as a statement for the board to make that, look, we've been dealing with this project for decades, and this particular aspect of it for the past couple years. We want to make sure that, you are following the right procedures here. And when we believe that there are issues that the planning board needs to address via site plan amendment. And so when we talk about, a kind of a friendly, letter, it's more, hey, we saw what you want to do. Looking forward to seeing your site plan amendment application. Because the alternative is, messier. Either, the planning board is going to other boards, or, we're kind of talking to town council about, what the options are. I think, them, I don't want to use the term voluntarily because we feel they're required to do it, so they should do it. But, making it, a situation where it's like, if you weren't aware that this is, required of you, we're making you aware, let's schedule a public hearing, when you're ready.
Tim, would typically the building commissioner determine that site plan approval is required, or does it up to the applicant and their attorneys that they know that?
I mean, so the very literal formal procedure is they go to the building commissioner for a building permit, and the building commissioner says you need site plan approval from the planning board, go to the planning board. As a practical matter, it's usually pretty cut and dried that you're going to need site plan approval. So you kind of don't even bother applying for the building permit and getting that, effectively rejection letter. You just go straight to the planning board. So this is a situation where, again, the next step, if this is, and I hate to sort of speculate because I feel like, tension is here and it can really be down here, once all is said and done. But, if a letter is sent to this applicant and they're like, we don't think that we need site plan approval, then I think the next step is, making the pitch to the building commissioner saying look, we think that you shouldn't be issuing any building permits for this until you get an amended site plan. I don't think it will or should come to that. But that would be kind of the leverage point, in this situation.
I would think a CC to the building commissioner on the letter would make sense as a heads up. So I support a letter making our position known to not just the applicant, but to the building commissioner, that we feel as if a restaurant as proposed at the select board meeting is something that's pursued. I mean, that may shift, I guess, but anything that combines that common space with the other lease space, I think we could make that as sort of, doesn't matter the numbers necessarily, but that's a change. What came to us as a common space now becoming something else. I think that can be the trigger.
There's been a change of use.
Yeah.
And I would say send that letter to the select board and the ZBA also.
Yes.
Not just
Good
the
point. Yeah.
building commissioner.
Yeah.
I'm kind of upset about this one. This isn't good.
It's put us in an awkward position, unfortunately.
Well,
I
I think so too, because, you know, I'd prefer to have something where a vision is presented to us instead of sort of piecemeal changes that eventually are going to add up to something that we didn't anticipate along the way. Because, you know, that vision may have influenced our decisions along the way. So any other applicant who's watching, hopefully is going to think about that and appreciate that sentiment, or that thought process that we have.
Yeah, you know, I support also that the applicant come back before the board for, you know, to me, you know, I think what would be a proper standard of approval with, you know, a complete set of facts, you know, known. And as I think about, I also recognize that there was an evolving business deal. So that seems to be something that wasn't far enough along for the applicant to explain to us what the intention was. But, you know, from my perspective, the work that was proposed to us for the stair is not so time sensitive that it had to precede, you know, the other aspects of getting this project moving along. It didn't need to. It certainly could have been dovetailed into whatever ultimately gets approved, you know, for their intended change.
So Sean, to that point, you know, a patio application, an enclosure application, a stair application. Now, an applicant has these approvals in hand when they go to the ZBA. It's different than going to the ZBA before they have the stair, before they have the enclosure. And so if the business deal was still in negotiation, I think it would have been preferable to wait for the application to be comprehensive.
Yeah, that's my point. That's my point. I don't think that what came before us for approval was so time sensitive that it needed to be done in the order that it was done. That's the point I'm trying to make.
And my point about the stair was, if this is really something that's required and necessary and going to be used, then you really need to think about how it lands. And so now I still think that, now that I know that there's probably a larger use intended there, I absolutely would have mandated that that consideration be made at the bottom of the stair. And whether the building official is going to pick up on it or not, I mean, I still think it's something that that we can comment on in the site plan approval.
It could be problematic, yeah, dangerous. Okay, all right.
So who's going to draft the letter?
Tim, do you want to work on a draft that you can circulate and we could add comments to?
Yeah, I'll put something together, and we'll have that. I think with enough time for people to give it a good close look
Yeah.
before the next meeting.
Okay. And it doesn't have to be lengthy. I think it
Yeah.
can be pretty
And can
It
you
won't
also,
be, don't worry.
stated.
sorry. Tim, can you also circulate that packet of information that you had regarding this?
Yeah.
Yeah,
here's-
it's really just, I have an email that I've been passing around with just all of the decisions and plans associated with them attached, just so they're all in one place. I'll send that along to everybody.
Cool,
Thank you. And Cheyenne did that work, bringing together all the copies of minutes and the clips from the meeting times. And so Cheyenne, thank you for all that work. You pulled that together really quickly, so thank you.
No problem.
That's great. Okay, so do we need a motion to vote on that we're sending a letter? Or are we're all in agreement?
I think wait until you see the letter.
Yes, okay. Not to draft it, so, and the minutes will reflect that, so. Okay, great. Terrific. Then we can move on to our old business. We've already gone to executive session, so now discussion of MBTA communities zoning. And when we last left off, we were making some good progress here.
So Meredith, we've actually got our friends from UTL in the attendees,
Okay,
if they can raise their
great.
hands. Just I think for a really quick update
that'd be great.
on what they've been working on.
Yes, welcome.
So JT Keller and Zoe Mueller, if they can be promoted. I don't have co-host ability, so I can't do it myself.
Okay. See them? JT, you see?
Julie, do you have a computer?
Can-
Want me to go get mine?
Are you able to promote? Sean? Or give Tim the ability to?
Oh, I
Zoe?
just got made a co-host. All right, I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
All right, Tim was able to do it now.
There we go. Thank you.
Hi there, everyone.
Hi, Zoe. Welcome.
Nice to see you all.
Yes.
So you got JT too. Great.
Right.
So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then JT and I are going to kind of tag team this. We wanted to walk you through our sort of initial research into a sort of hypothetical alternative of recategorization to an adjacent community. So I'm going to walk you through what we've prepared and give you a little bit of kind of background to the way that we're approaching it. I do need somebody to give me screen sharing permissions.
Tim, can you do that?
I think you should be good.
Yep, all good. Okay, great. All right, so I won't dwell on this too much. This is kind of just a reference if we need to go back to it. But as a reminder, there are kind of different, in the way that the guidelines are set up, they have given these different categories of communities, different kind of methods of calculating to get to the definition of reasonable size that spits out the different kind of compliance targets that you have to meet. So right now, all of your compliance targets are based on that rapid transit category, and then are in reference to other community characteristics you have, like the number of housing units that were counted in the 2020 census, the physical area of your town as a whole, and the developable station area, which we'll get into a little bit more later. So I want you to just kind of, as a preview, focus here on the rapid transit and the adjacent community categories. So rapid transit carries a 25% of total housing units method of calculating to get to that multifamily unit capacity, whereas adjacent has a lower percentage, 10%. So that's one of the biggest differences that you'll see as we kind of walk through this set of steps. So just as a reminder, the two key sort of assumptions or steps, you could say, in sort of building out this hypothetical scenario. The first is presuming that the Mattapan trolley service is equivalent to a standard bus service, and therefore it would not constitute rapid transit. I do want to just point out that in the way that the state has defined these MBTA service types, it's not really about the quality of the service, it's about the type of the service in terms of the physical infrastructure. But we're going to suspend disbelief on that for a moment and assume that this has been recognized as sort of equivalent to bus service, and therefore all Mattapan trolley stations are not considered station areas as the law is defining them, meaning a station area that is attached to a form of transit that is rapid or commuter rail. So that's assumption one. And the second one is, okay, so we're no longer in that rapid transit category. Which of the three other categories would Milton then fall into? And that's looking at the commuter rail category, the adjacent community category, and the adjacent small town. So we want to kind of walk you through those different, where you fall based on this kind of like flow chart of different decisions and the way that the state set up the calculation methods. Before doing that, we wanted to give you a quick visual of the station areas, because I know that in talking with Tim that there's been some confusion and discussion around whether you would be considered a commuter rail community, which is a logical question to have, given that you have commuter rail stops very close, just over the border. So right now, in your current designation as rapid transit, you can see the red bubbles here. Those are the half-mile radius around your Mattapan trolley station areas. And then the purple kind of overlaid on top of that is showing you the commuter rail station areas, so half a mile from the commuter rail stations. So you can see that the majority of your station area is coming from that Mattapan trolley, and there's just a little sliver of these three different commuter rail ones. And then, before I move on there, and right now you have of that whole area, 404 acres are considered developable, meaning they're privately held land that is not kind of right of way, or it doesn't carry other kind of restrictions like publicly held land would, and could feasibly be developed as housing at some point in the future. If we then say, okay, Mattapan trolley is now equivalent of bus, we're now only looking at those commuter rail areas. When you take just those slivers, you end up with 74 acres of land that is in Milton and is also half a mile from a commuter rail station. And this on its own kind of kicks you out of the commuter rail category into the other two. And the reason is because the state set a threshold for inclusion in that commuter rail community category that you have to have at least 100 acres of a developable station area. And right now, without even going through the exercise of saying, is it developable or not? Is it publicly held or not? Is it a right of way or a parcel? You only have 74. So no matter what the split is between private and public land, developable parcels, or right of way, you're still below that 100 acre threshold. So you are not going to be considered a commuter rail community because that station area doesn't hit that threshold. So I want to just pause there because this is like a important fork in the road, and just see if there are any questions on that before we go through kind of the rest of the flow chart on this.
Zoe, I had a question. We have a GIS expert who works out of Town Hall, and we just recently got a calculation of 61 total acres.
Yeah, I talked with Tim about this beforehand. So this is, what we're showing here is just the raw calculation of station area, and what you're talking about is the first draft of developable station area. So within that 74, how many of those acres could be considered developable? So again, are like private land that doesn't have, like conservation restrictions on it or other things like that, isn't a public right of way. So in reality, your developable station area is even less than 74, but at most, is 74. So even without going into more detail of what the GIS specialist for your town went through, we already know that you're not going to be in that commuter rail category.
Right, understood, but we may be asked by, in the courts, what exactly is our developable area? So you're saying you have calculated it to be 61 acres is developable?
So we haven't done that calculation because
Okay.
we stopped here at, because we saw.
Right, and I get the
station.
logic on that,
Yeah.
yeah. So again, I'm sorry, the difference that you were saying, the
They
difference
said
between
74 acres.
74 acres, and Alan Bishop agreed with that?
He says 61.
You said 61.
But they're not calculating the same thing.
Okay.
I think
But
is
they're
what
both
Zoe
under
is saying.
100, so it's good.
Yeah, so if I kind of walk through here, so
Sure.
70, if you think of it like as kind of like, I guess layers is maybe the best way to think of it. So the first layer is it within half a mile of the station and also in Milton? So if you're asking that question, just is it half a mile to the station and in Milton, you get 74. If you're going to be precise, it's like, I think 73.7.
Okay.
So that meets those two criteria. And then you need to add the final criteria, which is it developable?
Right.
And that's the criteria that your town GIS specialist has added on top of the two criteria that we're showing here. And so they're getting a smaller number, which makes sense because they're considering all of those street right-of-ways that need to be removed. Those aren't developable. They're going to be streets. You can't put a house there. Any like DCR, public land, public conservation land needs to get taken out of there. So in other words, both numbers can be right. They're representing different levels of detail to the calculation.
So you would be able to further break that down, those 61 acres, or your 74, and tell us exactly the amount of developable land? And we don't need it tomorrow, but
Well, Alan.
We could, but I don't think it's worth doing because it doesn't, it won't change your category because the 74 is as high as it could get.
right.
And that 74 is too small for you to be in the commuter rail category. And as soon as you're not in the commuter rail category, station areas don't matter at all. There's no station areas that you have to plan around. You're just trying to meet a number of units and have a contiguous district and meet your minimum acreage. So you no longer need to think about transit area at all.
I completely understand that. But what the statute says is how many developable acres. So I think we just need, as a town, we need to be able to answer how much is developable, even though we know it's under 100, because the statute has specific language about developable acres. I just think we need to be able to answer that. So I would appreciate it if you could provide that calculation at some point. Just because that is what is legally what is stated, developable land.
Yeah, and I sort of agree. I think it would be just to confirm. It's just confirming what our staff here at Town Hall has provided us. So it's like just to back up. So I think it could be I think it's useful to have.
I mean, it's something we can do. If you all agree and the town staff agree, we can do it. I just don't think it's worth the money from my professional opinion because it won't change the state's interpretation. It doesn't play any role in how you'd get categorized because this calculation alone throws you out of this category. But I'm happy to do it if it's something that you all would like to see.
I think because
It'll just
legally
take us a
that's
little
what
bit of
we're
extra
going to be
time.
asked. Yeah, legally we're in.
But if we're asked that, why wouldn't we just rely on Alan Bishop's calculation for it? I guess, can we put a pin on it and hold it and come back and see the rest of the analysis?
Yeah,
to
let's
see
do
how,
that. But
yeah.
I would ask. Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? The 404 developable station areas for rapid transit, when you back out the 74, that puts us down around 330, right?
So That's the difference. So what you're being held to right now is related to that 404 acres of developable station area, which the state calculated for you. You're correct that the difference between that and the number that we're showing for the like a commuter rail, like testing the commuter rail category scenario, the difference between those two numbers, but that difference doesn't mean anything because it's kind of comparing apples and oranges.
Well, they added in the commuter rail areas to the rapid transit area to get that 404, right?
No, it's all
The state ran these numbers, but my understanding is that the developable station area is calculated relative to all stations that are categorized as stations in the law, which means they're related to rapid transit, commuter rail, and selectively bus, meaning basically the Silver Line, which functions almost like a rapid transit or commuter rail service.
I gotcha. Okay.
Jim, the other thing is that it's not just the commuter rail area subtracted from the total, because around Capon Street and Blue Hills Parkway, there's overlap. So there's commuter rail, and frankly, that's the bulk of the commuter rail area is also within Mattapan Station. So it's you're subtracting Smith Road and Big Blue Drive from 404 in that case.
Yeah, but I remember hearing early on that if we get below 400, it's somehow advantageous to us. It bumps us into a lower category or something happens below 400 acres. So I was just hoping we could take out the commuter rail areas.
So I think
find
you
4
might,
acres somewhere.
You might be, you might be thinking of this 100 acres.
No, I'm not. I'm thinking of below 400. That's okay, I'll find it.
I can tell you with great confidence, this is the only threshold that is acreage based that relates to whether or not you're considered a commuter rail community. So there might be another parameter that you're talking about that has to do with, for instance, the difference between adjacent community and adjacent small town. That's another important distinction.
Could be that one.
But it wouldn't be about the commuter rail area. It would be about your total town size.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll come up in the next one, and JT will kind of walk through this next level of detail because he really got down into the weeds with it, and he'll do a better job than me. But we'll get to those numbers that make the difference between adjacent community, adjacent small town.
Thank you, Zoe.
You bet. Any other questions on the station area bit before we jump to the next set of sort of forks in the road? Great. So I'm going to pass it off to JT, and we'll go through, what the logic is for you right now, and then what the logic would be if we take this sort of recategorizing or reframing the Mattapan trolley as if it was a bus.
Thanks, Zoe. Yeah, this will hopefully just be kind of a summary of what Zoe was walking us through spatially in the town, and in answer to the last question about the threshold of 400, just to reiterate what Zoe said, you're right, it does put you in a different category for the percentage of developable station area that must be within the rapid transit, like the 0.5 mile rapid transit area, which as a commuter, since hypothetically you wouldn't be you wouldn't be a commuter rail, which we'll go through right now, that becomes irrelevant regardless, right? Because you're going to be categorized in this hypothetical scenario as an adjacent community, which means like the station area requirement becomes irrelevant, as Zoe said. So this is why, based on the flow chart of the 3A compliance kind of logic, the first question is, does your community have within its borders at least 100 acres of developable land within a half a mile of a rapid transit station? Under the current kind of logic with the trolley, Milton is categorized as that, and therefore it has this capacity requirement of 25% and a minimum land area of 50 acres. And then So the alternate scenario that we're going to run through now is, if we kind of hypothetically categorize the trolley as a bus, and therefore you don't have 100 acres, the next question becomes, does the community have within its borders at least 100 acres of land that's within a half a mile of a commuter rail? And as Zoe just kind of walked us through, we don't. It's 74 acres max, and that includes streets and undevelopable, protected lands. And so the answer to that would be no. And then so that, that leads us to the third kind of criteria is, does the community have with less than 100 acres of developable area? And one of the following kind of population thresholds, one being a density of 500 persons per square mile, or a population of not more than 7,000 of year-round residents. The answer to that is no. And so that would put Milton in the adjacent community category, which is a 10% requirement of the 2020 housing stock. So that's the main criteria difference that would apply under this scenario. We would go from 25% of your 2020 housing stock to 10%, and that's a pretty drastic drop in the minimum requirement for capacity. It goes from like 2,000, it goes from like 2,200 right to 980, or 2,500 to 980. So hopefully that makes sense, at least to the broad strokes of it.
Will on that. Any questions on this? This is like a little bit like a multiple choice question in a test or something, it's like
incredibly
designed to be a little confusing.
Yes.
No, I think that's very clear.
It's good.
Great. All right, you want to take us home, JT, for the last one here?
Sure. Yes. And so kind of one more thing to note, another caveat that just, for all of our kind of edification on just how complicated this model gets. So there's another kind of element to determining multifamily unit capacity. It's the number is whichever is higher of two possible kind of calculations. One is the designated percentage of housing stock given your category, which, in your current case is 25%. In this hypothetical scenario, it would be 10%, or the minimum gross density of 15 units per acre multiplied by this minimum land area requirement. And so, in that's just to kind of try to cover scenarios in which towns would be kind of not very dense, is what I'm imagining. Maybe Zoe can help me kind of walk through that theoretically. But in the case of Milton, that number is 785, which is 200, exactly 200 less than 985. So the number is indeed 985. That's the mark to hit as an adjacent community for Milton.
Any questions on that? Anyone?
Wait, why wouldn't we be 785?
So the number this part of the kind of the model, the number that is chosen is the higher number of those two calculations. It's yeah.
So in this world, you'd basically be planning for the same minimum land area, which for all of our scenarios, the land area has not been an issue at all. We've always well exceeded that. Your minimum multifamily unit capacity would drop way down, more than half of the current kind of multifamily unit capacity that we're aiming for would no longer be necessary. You'd be aiming for 985 units. You would not have any requirements related to station area. So the location within the town would no longer matter, according to the model. The only thing that kind of still remains that has that sort of geographic element to it is this contiguous requirement. So it basically means you can't just split the districts up to be scattered all over. You need to have kind of a center of gravity that is a single contiguous area that is at least 50% of the sort of the total area of the districts that you're looking at. So I think what this kind of means is you'd be looking at a scenario where you're including way less land in your overall district to achieve compliance. So it'd be similar densities. You'd have to make sure all of them are kind of balancing out with one another, but you'd be zoning way less land, but you have to make sure that you hold on to that contiguous, 50% center of gravity. And that's the thing that would probably be most challenging in that scenario is finding, where would that center of gravity be? But that's kind of, gives you the kind of the two different pictures of how you might sort of be approaching compliance for Milton. Any last questions on that? Seems like it's...
So what would be 50% of the total area that would apply?
So like, for instance, in the option 1N, the option that came before town meeting at the end of last year, what was getting us to the 50% was the set of districts that sort of flanked the Elliott Street corridor. So there were enough districts that were all touching one another, were all contiguous with one another, that they counted as, they collectively, they were 50% of the area of all of the sub-districts that were included in this.
Yeah,
overlay.
so no, in this new, not looking back, but moving forward.
Yeah, so we haven't done any work around, where might these districts be, or what might,
No, just how many acres. So the district.
So if your minimum land area is 50, you'd have to have at least 25 acres,
so
a little bit more than 25 acres
so we
in
need
this
a district
contiguous.
of 25 acres.
Yeah, one of them has to be at least 25 acres. It would have to actually be a little bit more probably, because at least how we've been doing this so far, we're aiming to get kind of as close to that 15 units per acre as possible, which tends to mean that you end up zoning a little bit more land at that lower density. So it's functionally, it probably would have to be a little bit more than that 25, because unless you started to zone things at a higher density than what we've been looking at so far as a group. Just to kind of set expectations. But from a technical standpoint, 25 is the lowest that it could get and still meet that requirement. But in reality, it would probably be larger than that.
And so just to kind of clarify things, for the adjacent community, scenario, the minimum size is there, 50 acres. If we're trying to hit the minimum multifamily unit capacity, that's about 20 units per acre. 985 units in 50 acres, it's 19.7. So if you think about how we kind of went through, the Elliott Street corridor is relatively not dense, and so we've got to crank up the density sort of elsewhere. That dynamic still exists unless you're ready to do a 50-acre district at 20 units per acre. So there's still going to be those sort of peaks and valleys on sort of the low end and the high end. And then, Maggie, to kind of your question, it's a district has to be at least 25 acres. My instinct here, based on the previous conversations that we've had around this, is that our total district size is going to be more than 50 acres. Because again, 50 acres of 20 units per acre is, a sort of a building type that we're not really accustomed to here in town. And so there's going to be a demand for a little bit less density in certain places.
Yeah, so for instance, if you were trying to just ride that 15 units per acre as close as you could get it, you'd be looking at zoning something more like 66 acres in order to get those 985 units at 15 units per acre. So that realistically, that's probably we'd be looking at zoning more like 66 acres because it's been a priority thus far to kind of stay close to that, not exceed the 15 units per acre by much as an overall target.
So I thought as an adjacent community, you could put the districts anywhere.
As long as you still have that center of gravity somewhere.
As long as you have 25, the other 25 could be anywhere as long as it's 5 acre minimum.
Yep, that's about right. So it's kind of a whole new puzzle.
Well, I was going to say, just so we're clear, it's not a static 25. It's half of whatever your total district is. So as Zoe was saying, like if we do something that's 66 acres, 33 of those acres have to be contiguous.
Right, yeah.
Right.
If we go up to 100 acres, 50, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The 25 is the minimum.
Yeah.
Great.
And this is
Sounds
all
like
under the
some-
guidelines.
Some
not
wheels
the
are
statute.
turning. You're starting to think through some ways to do this. But I think if there's any questions, we're happy to stay and clear those up. Otherwise, we can release you to the remaining of the kind of prep work that you're doing around the different sub-districts.
Yep. All right. Any other questions, Sean, or anyone else? This is good.
This is very helpful.
Good, I'm glad. Yeah, this is was kind of in a weird way, it was a fun puzzle for us because we've just been handed these numbers by the state running the calculation. So now JT really knows the back end.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And just to, before you guys leave, just before leave, to go back to what Meredith's request was to fine tune the 74 acres, and confirm our GIS specialist acres. It would just be nice to get confirmation.
Sure. Yeah.
And whenever you can, that would be great.
So did you
Can I
say-
ask, I'm sorry, Jim, on that question, can I just ask how long they think it would take them to do it so we know what the cost is to do it?
JT, what do you think it would be? I mean, we'd have to kind of run through the parcel data and make sure that we're identifying the which parcels have, and I think that's in the parcel layer from the state, but we'd have to do some kind of slightly more manual calculations there, and then we'd have to do a spatial join to remove the street right of ways, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's not going to be too costly. And I'm happy to do it. Yeah. I'm not
Probably
sure
on
exactly.
something like a day of work.
Sure.
Maybe,
Yeah.
and forgetting exactly what hourly rate we have you at, but I guess it's probably under $1,000.
It may be really vital information that.
Sure, I'm happy to do it. And I'm not sure what your GIS crew on your end exactly what data they were using, if they were using the MBTA official shape files or so. It might be different, but it should, that difference sounds about right. About 15 acres lost due to right of way and mainly right of way, I'm imagining. So it should be in the 60-ish range. I'm guessing.
Yeah, there's some DCR property, particularly around Mattapan Square.
And our Alan Bishop was able to provide all the detailed parcels within that, so it seems like maybe that might be
we'd have to
some of
do
the
that
work.
to get to the final number. We have to do that anyway, so we
Right.
might as well give it to you.
So he could, so Tim, you could maybe provide that for UTL to make it easier and coordinate between Alan Bishop. Is that okay, Tim? All right. Thank you. That's okay.
Right. I think we've got our follow-ups, and if there's anything else that comes up, we'll circle back with Tim about any decisions made in today's meeting that we should do some follow-up on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thanks all.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you all.
So long.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good night.
So did
That
we
was great.
authorize them to work on a 10% plan? How did that just happen?
We did.
What did I
So we
miss? We
talked
did?
about
That's, we told them, yeah, we
Told
need to
them
work
to look at
on,
a 10% as well?
yeah.
Okay.
That's going to be something that we're going to be working towards,
Okay,
having various scenarios, so,
good enough.
yeah. Okay, so where we left off, we have done, we've sort of given we're working on our scorecard. We've gone through the Milton Station East, Granite Avenue North, Granite Avenue South. This has been really an interesting exercise to go through as we're working towards this. So our next, so if we've done those, are we on, I guess, the Elliott Street corridor would be the next. Light Bridge. Oh, we did the bridge? Did we do the bridge?
It doesn't
No.
look like we did the bridge.
No, so we should do the bridge next, because I think that'll be sort of going from east to west.
So the bridge, if we have the map.
Can we pull the scorecard up? Is that, was that helpful to do that up on the screen? Did people like that, or does it not matter?
Yeah, I like it. I like being able to see the whole thing.
The
Yeah,
spreadsheet?
Yeah, I know it's impossible.
Scorecard.
But
And Tim was trying to fill in. You were doing a great job, Tim.
So let's just be clear, the bridge is,
That's Milton Hill House?
and it's also 131 Elliott
And
and
136
136
yeah.
Central, right? Right.
No, that's
Not
west.
36 Central, yeah.
No, so it's just,
Just the Milton Hill House parcels.
it doesn't include Steel and Rye building?
No, those are done.
So just the Milton Hill House and that new development next door to it on the same side of the street?
Yes.
And that's it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it-
Yeah, I'm trying to
Get
look at this
that?
tiny map.
Yeah.
What is that, 50
Okay.
Elliott, Tim? What's the name of
Okay,
what's the
thanks.
address of that new one?
One is 36 Elliott, the other is 50 Elliott.
50, yeah, okay, cool,
Okay,
thank you.
so let's see, allowed height is comparable. And what's existing at, we have that, right? And I did.
Yeah, let me see if I think I have the,
I have it too.
Granite of South Bridge. Existing unit estimate, this would be 14.9 acres, model capacity,
So
185.
50 Elliott, it's 4 stories, right? They're both 4-story buildings.
But we're doing Milton Hill House.
Yeah, so the existing buildings
yeah.
are 4 stories.
Yep.
And what we have for the bridge is, I have to find it.
We're like live, right? That's Tim and you.
I don't think I'm on here. That's
There you
Cheryl.
are, JD.
Oh, am I?
Yep, let me see if I have.
Super live.
Tim, there.
Tim, I don't know, would you be able to pull up a shared screen of the height and dimensions and unit capacity? So we could
See my cursor?
view both. I don't know if that's, because I did not bring my.
I'd have to,
I think I'm trying to find my sheet too, and I'm not finding it.
yeah, I'd have to find that document. I don't have that at my fingertips right now.
Okay,
All right, let me just find it.
maybe. I have unit capacity, but I don't have the height.
Did we put that at 4 or 4.5 stories? It's certainly not higher. So I guess what I would say, I think it's comparable. But if we were looking for the exact.
I think we did,
number-
it was comparable. I don't know how much
Yeah,
it was.
I think, I've just found it here. Okay, so bridge, we have at 4.5 stories. And the existing buildings are 4 stories. So I would give that a 5. Mm-hmm. Does everyone agree with that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep,
Yeah, that's fine.
definitely.
All right, and then as we,
So compared to the existing in the district of 5, because I think there's other 4.5 story buildings there. And then height is
Okay.
comparable to multifamily. in parts of town. That's in that area specifically,
So
parts of
allowed
town.
building
so-
size is comparable. I think we set the FAR here also to be similar. So the bridge FAR, sorry, I don't have that as readily at my fingertips. I would say we set these to be comparable. So I would, I don't, and the existing FAR in these, it's a little funky because the one on top has a low FAR because it has a lot of land area associated with it, and the one closer to the street has a smaller land area associated with it, so its FAR is higher. If you average them out, I think we'd end up comparable to what's in the zoning. But let me find it.
Did we do A2 already?
We did
What did we put for that?
a 5.
For the height for A2, the
That's what
height
we were on.
is comparable to existing multifamily in parts of town, 4.5 stories, particularly in that area.
I mean, I have no problem with a 5 for that one, but I just thought that's what we were
Yeah,
on.
I might be a 4 on that.
Which one?
A2.
A2.
And why is that? I'm just curious.
Because it tends to be more in this part of town that you find those heights.
Except these are up against single families. And that was a big consideration when the ZBA approved that. There's a single family right next to it. And then behind it, you probably remember hearing from neighbors who live on, I guess that would be.
Morton Terrace?
Can't have.
Wait, this is
Canton
still
Ave.
Milton Hill House.
I understand, but the behind,
Yeah.
at the back side of Milton
Right.
Hill House are single families.
Right, right.
And on the side of Milton Hill House, it's not just the street facing, but there's a side part that's up against Morton Terrace.
Right.
And there's single families there. Whereas if you look at where we talked about
That's why I was gonna lower
east
the
and-
number
I could see
and make
why,
it
yeah.
less,
Oh, I see,
So it
okay.
and
goes-
making it
4.
not
Okay,
like
so you want to make it a 4.
Four,
Okay, I
that's why,
gotcha.
yeah.
All right.
because it is, we want to be
Got
sensitive.
it.
And that might be
Okay.
area that if we could take it down, we might want to take that down.
Okay, I understand.
And allowed building size is comparable to existing. I would
So that's where I'm
say
trying to get to the FAR.
4
So
on that.
can I, who's editing this? Is it me or is it somebody else?
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's all three of us.
I
We're
adjusted all
three
the
of us.
columns so that I could see Milton Station Bridge on the same page as guiding principles, but
I think we're best to have Tim do it.
yeah,
I'm
sorry.
filling
I thought
a
it was
copy
exclusive to
in.
me. I didn't realize I'm out there.
Oh, you've got it open. You need to
Yeah,
have a
that's
copy.
it.
I
Yeah.
guess, yeah.
You need to have a copy.
I'll have to find a copy here.
Yeah, Tim, if you could fill it in, that
Sorry,
would be
Tim.
great.
No, I'm
You're
seeing
too
things
slow.
move around. I thought it was a ghost.
My mad computer skills
Okay,
took
so
over.
what I would say is we have I think this is right. And the Milton Central Ave station, is that the bridge or not? No. So what's the
Milton
bridge called
Station
in?
Bridge. I have
Thought
it
that's
in
what we're on. That's the 2 Elliott Street parcels, right?
But is it called bridge in the
It's the Milton Hill House.
zoning? Because I don't find
Milton
bridge
Hill.
in the zoning. Isn't it called Milton/Central Ave?
There are 3 districts.
Yeah.
One of them is the Central Ave Business District. One of them is the Milton Village Business District, and Milton Station Bridge is the parcels that connect them. And those are the 2 ones. I'll
I
bring
was-
this up on the map.
Okay.
No, I'm trying to
Okay, so we're
find it
talking-
in,
so
I'm
right now
trying
we're
to find
talking
it in
about-
the zoning, which I don't find in the zoning.
Right now we're talking about Elliott Street, right?
Yeah.
50 and 36.
Correct, that's it.
No,
Yes.
Milton, we're not even,
Milton Hill,
we're Milton Hill
Because
House.
if I'm-
We're not
if
even
I
to
look
Elliott.
at-
Yeah,
that's Elliott.
We're not even talking about 50?
not yet. That's part of the Elliott Street corridor.
50 Elliott?
On this map.
50 Elliott
No.
Street is not what we're discussing right now? I'm sorry, I could have swore
It's
that
the two
road.
Milton Hills.
Yeah, 36 and 50 Elliott Street
It's old
Right,
and
that's
new.
Milton Hill.
Yeah, old and new Milton Hill.
is all we're talking about right now, right? Yeah, okay.
But what I'm trying to find is the FAR that was included for that. And when I look in here, I don't find bridge as a category. This was what was approved. And so that's why I'm
why
trying
this
to
is a
find
little
it
bit
somewhere
different.
else.
Our
Yeah.
warrant is incorrect.
All right, are you looking at
And
your
also,
screen?
Annette knew it was incorrect.
I
on
was
Elliott
looking at
Street,
the
too.
warrant. Is that what you have open?
Yes.
What page
So,
then?
So it's section E, Milton Central Ave Station Subdistrict, okay?
Right,
And
so
then the differentiations between east, west, and bridge are made in the dimensional tables.
All right, that's why I wasn't finding it. That's why I kept asking about what's included in
So
here?
it's the same FAR standard for all three districts.
And it's a 1, right?
Yes.
All right, so if what I'm getting on 50 Elliott is a 0.82 and 36 Elliott is a 0.27. So I guess what I would say I would put this as a 4 also because it's a higher FAR.
Yeah, because I'm getting the bridge that 185 units at a density of 38.9 compared to what currently exists, 14.9. So we don't have a lot of capacity. Yeah, we don't have a lot of 185 unit buildings. So I would say a 4. I mean, it has a lot of land area and potential.
What are you reading there?
This is what the model existing unit, there's 68 units currently existing there, which is an average of 14.9 units per acre. What is being proposed is the potential for 185 units at 38.9.
One thing I would say about that though, Meredith,
I'm sorry, what did you?
that's the document that I prepared. But what I would say about that is Milton Hill, like the one closest to the street, which I think is 50. I looked at that building a while ago. It's mostly large 2-bedroom units. So when we're thinking about building size, you know, the model says 1,000 square feet, which is gross. So you're looking at something that's more like 850 net by the time you take corridors and stairs and elevators out. So you're looking at a lot more units in the same square footage because they're smaller units. So that's why building size, I think it's important to think about FAR, because that's the total size of the building. So that's why I said if the FAR that exists is an average of the 0.82 and the 0.27, and we put it as a 1, then I think, you know, it's not, we put it at something higher, that's higher than what's there now. So I wouldn't give it a 5, but I'd say, I would give it a 4.
I would, that's.
And this is where the FAR and the unit size is important, because most of our multifamily is large units. It's the same at 88 Wharf. Even at 131 Elliott, the units are large by what's the standards that I'm seeing in projects.
So is that what you prepared for town meeting or for us?
No, this
I'm
is for
confused.
us that I've been wanting to get to.
Which we'll get to. Yeah, I just was working off of
I was
something
wondering,
we haven't
so
gotten there.
Have we
yet.
gotten this yet? I guess I'm confused.
Yes.
Okay, so it's somewhere in my email?
And I can share this when we get, if we get, I don't know if we'll get to tonight.
I don't know if we'll get to it tonight either, but
Would you share it to me? Send it to me? 'Cause
I think I sent
next-
it, or
You probably
I'm pretty
did.
sure I
probably-
sent it, so if you did
Julia
a search from me, if not, I'll send it.
We'll ask if this can be
And-
resent to everybody.
And I've been looking for the
doesn't get you
presentation
calling
I
on it?
did at town meeting.
It's just included.
Okay, it's all good.
The presentation I did at town meeting was actually the comparisons of what we're trying to do. And I thought I had each sheet printed out, and I don't, but I will pull up that presentation while we go through this.
All right, so we have A2 is 4, A3 is 4.
Right.
A4, I would say 3, because that's comparable.
I would say, 4 stories for multifamily in other parts of town, excluding the 40Bs. I mean, this is the part of town that really has them.
So that's why it's some parts of town, but not others. That's why I think we ended up with a 3 on the Milton Station East. It was sort of a neutral, because East Milton Square doesn't have 4 stories, except for it will have 1, but that's not typical. But it is typical of this area.
Yeah, so Milton Station
Two parts of
East,
town. It's saying two parts of town, so that would be 4, I guess.
I guess I'm thinking about the 3s that we gave Milton Station East and how we're giving Bridge higher. They really all should be the same, so I think they're all factored the same. The thinking and the numbers were all the same. So it's like, to me, Milton Station, East, West, and Bridge, I'm not sure why we would have 3 on East and 4 on Bridge, now that I'm thinking about it again.
I think it was because of the conversation in some parts of town, is it allowed height
Because
is
6
comparable.
stories is probably not as common as 4, maybe? So what the
Yeah,
thinking
that's
was?
probably was our logic,
Okay,
which would make sense.
and so,
Yeah, in the mill buildings that. So I think it's okay to put 4 on this.
okay, and then allowed building typology is comparable to existing. That I would say is a 5. Required open space at 40% we have here, right? On Milton Hill. I'm just looking at the
I would say
open
5 on
space. So lot coverage for 50 Elliott, 22%.
That would be different, I think different than what exists.
Yeah, I think probably there's more open space existing than by some amount, but I'm not sure. Because of 2 different buildings, there's more open space on the one up high
Hill
than there is down below. So maybe this is a 4 instead of a 5.
And I think maybe the one in front was allowed to be less open space because of the one behind. So if we allowed the one behind to be as big as the front, there goes the open space, and I think that changes both those buildings.
Yeah, the 40% that's required, so would have to be in those, if they were done separately, that front one couldn't really be redone in the way that it's done, because it doesn't have 40%, right? So that one would be not redeveloped. So the one in the back, if it's redeveloped, would have to do the 40%.
Yeah.
So I would say, I don't know, maybe it is a 5 then, instead of a 4.
Yeah, because the front one works because of the back open space.
All right, so a 5.
I'm fine with that.
All right, and then district includes area with significant tree coverage. And we were giving the others a 5 because it didn't have tree coverage, so I think we do the same thing here, right? On the density per acre, you can get to this minimum with this, right? So that's why we gave it a 5. The same with the unit capacity.
I'm looking at this, district includes area with significant tree coverage, that should not be a 5. Because we
No,
want.
because we're giving it a high point because it doesn't. Remember, we talked about this last time?
It doesn't,
It's
okay.
counterintuitive,
Opposite.
but.
Right, okay, I'm sorry, that's right, that is the
know.
logic, I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
I know what you're saying. It's
We have to
confusing.
remind ourselves
It
at the
is
beginning
5.
of every meeting.
Yes,
Yes.
we have to remind ourselves, right.
Okay,
As Tim reminded
Apologies.
us last time, you want the points to be there because there
right,
isn't
because,
tree
right,
coverage, right?
exactly. It's,
And then the sub-district size here. We gave the other 5, but it's not big enough on its own, right? This isn't big enough, just like Granite Ave North wasn't big enough on its own. So we gave Granite Ave North a 3. So it seems like we would have to give a 3 here too, because it depends on it being attached with some other districts to make the acreage, right? It was the same logic anyway.
Yeah, isn't Granite Ave 5 though?
yeah,
Not for
Granite Ave.
sub-district size?
density per,
Oh,
On-
that's,
on
okay,
north,
sorry.
on
Yeah, I
north.
was just,
are you on B1?
Tim's still on
see
B,
in 5.
still,
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Tim's still on B1.
I'm on B1 too, Tim. I'm with Tim.
I'm on.
Do we,
Cheryl's
units
on
per acre?
B3.
That would be 5, I would say 5.
5, and 3. Yeah, you're right, I jumped ahead.
So that would be, yeah, are we in agreement, 5, 5?
5, 5, 3.
Yeah.
5 and 3 sounds good.
Sorry, I'm having to scroll back
That's
and
great.
forth too, so.
All right, I just want to make sure I,
Yeah.
getting that.
So what are we on B1?
Tim, so that was
5.
B1, 2, and 3 is 5, 5, and 3.
All right, and then existing land use is single family, we changed that N to a 5, right, because it's not single family. The land is vacant, which it's not. So that means we give this a 1, I think, because, maybe it's not, maybe we give this something in between because the building in back is old, but it's not vacant, so I guess we give it a 1. And then this one, the next one's maybe the building value is high. The one in the back is going to be less valuable, right? So maybe we give this a 3.
So Tim, you need to change C1 to 5.
Yeah, sorry, I keep doing, thank you
No,
for
he's-
keeping track.
He's slow.
So
All right,
wouldn't
so we
this-
have a
wouldn't the
5.
one on the back be worth more because it's denser? So if you were to remodel it, you would be able to get more square footage out of it? So wouldn't that give it a higher number?
Yeah, that's why existing building value is high. So what did we do?
I mean, both
Well, I'm
of
thinking
those
the
things.
Milton Hill House, there's a really large parking lot, which is technically vacant. Like half, so half of it, there's some of it is, I would consider not utilized, but
Yeah, so the one in front's brand new, so we don't think
That
that's
is-
really going to get
Right.
So this is all one district, so we have to factor that one building's old and one is new. That's kind of why I was giving it a 3.
Yeah. No, 3's good.
so 5, 1, 3.
But I think on the next one, Meredith, district has parcels and/or buildings of adequate size to allow additional units without demolition. I think that's true. If you redeveloped that back building, you might have smaller units in there, or even do an addition to it. So I think this one you could go with a 5. So that's the C4, right?
Yep. Or a 4. No, for
All right, I'm fine with the 4 there
a
too.
4, yeah, it's not. Okay. So that was 5, 1, 3, 4 for Cs. Okay. Right.
I think what we were, Milton Station East, were we mostly thinking about the extra space storage building? I guess probably. All right.
And the mill, yeah, the mill buildings. and
Right.
The Bank of America building.
So this, the next is historic. So these are not historic. So I would say each of these is a 5, right?
Well, the back building, when was that built? I mean, in terms now, it could be considered historic because it's 50
Yeah.
years old.
All right, our historical commission
I
member.
would, I would
mean,
not
I'm not
say,
saying-
I would not say that is.
Historic, I
But
think it's
I'm not
something worth
saying
saving.
But I think the
Yeah,
Hayward,
I don't-
is Hayward photography included in this? No, so,
No, this is just Hill
yeah.
House.
Yeah, this, no, then that's,
I would say,
there used to be, sadly, the original Milton Hill House, which was a hotel, was
Really?
oh,
beautiful old
Interesting.
house. It used to be there. It was sort of where people would stop on their horses on their way from Boston out to the country. So it
cool.
was-
Very cool.
So, Maggie, are you good with a 5 here? On all of the historics, is everybody good with a 5?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep, oh, yeah.
Then we get to zone larger non-residential parcels to prevent displacement. We said we were going to come back
To
to
these.
these, right, that are in yellow.
To prevent displacement of residents, or what do we prevent? What displacement? So large
No, this was the
process to
parcel
prevent
size?
Displacement.
Here,
Minimum.
Because if the larger parcels that are non-residential, it means that existing residential are not impacted. So I guess displacement is really just a term that references that. I mean, I suppose one could say commercial businesses are displaced. We could think about changing that.
I think
But it's-
that's what we talked about.
yeah, but I do think that the idea here was the parcel size. And I think we said, we highlighted these in yellow saying we're going to have to come back and rethink this a little bit because of the way it's laid out with these parcel sizes in the numbers of parcels. So I think we should, again, tonight, just
Skip over
bypass
this.
this category.
Yeah, this is a category that isn't really scoring. This is real more data.
Yeah, exactly. So then we go to take advantage of existing multifamily housing. So instead of the Y, this is multifamily. Existing land use is, so I'd say we give this a 5 instead of the Y. And then this actually, the existing zoning is not. This is permitted under special permit through the Board of Appeal, not through zoning. So I'd say this gets a lower, I don't know what lower number we want to give it, but maybe a 2.
That makes sense.
Mixed-use zoning process underway.
We've already done the overlay.
This is not in that overlay? I don't believe it's in any of the, is
Oh,
this
no.
in the Central Ave overlay though, Tim? It's not in the
Nope.
Milton Village?
Neither.
Neither. So then this gets a low number also for this.
It'd be a
A
1.
1. Density level matches existing. This is that funny thing about unit size. So I'd say it kind of goes back to the building. What did we do for building size? We gave it a 4. So I think I would give it a 4 here. Does everyone agree?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yep, I would say.
And then dimensional standards match existing. I think that's probably a 5. Design guidelines in place. No, there's not any here. So I guess that's a 1. And this, again, is a 1 if we're matching what we did. Right? And then access to the trolley within a half mile, that's a 5. And then an A.
What did we do for 6 and 7? I'm sorry.
1 and 1.
ones.
Sure you don't want me to drive?
And then we have a 5 for G1, and 2 and 3 get NAs. And then the bus lines,
Shirley, you're going way too fast. What was G2?
NA.
NA and an NA for both 2 and 3.
Okay. Bus lines. There's bus lines
There's bus
there.
lines,
So I'd say 5. Bike path, half mile, that's a 5. Sidewalks, 5.
Public amenities.
School within a half a mile. How far did we say
Stoddard
Glover
School.
was?
Glover, but that might be a little further than a
little
half
further.
mile. It's up Canton.
All right, so
3 probably?
maybe a 3. I'm fine with that. Shops, cafes, etc. This is high. I'd
Right
say
there.
5. And then amenities within a mile. That's probably a 5 too. Are we good, Tim?
Yep.
All right. Mixed use required. This is where we have it required, or is it just at Central and?
Yeah, I don't think we could have it here.
So here we have NA and then 5, right? So we're allowing it.
Did they convert that, the restaurant at Milton Hill to a condo? Did they take that over?
Yeah, there's nothing there right now.
Yeah.
That was a shame. There's nothing there at all? It's an empty?
Yeah.
That was a nice little restaurant.
It was the only restaurant in town.
For a long time.
We had, after my father passed away, that's where we had the reception.
We were so excited to go out to dinner.
Yeah.
Milton Hill House.
So the next one's a 5 though, Tim, because it's allowed, right? Everybody agree it's a 5 on H2?
Sure.
Yes.
Yep, I'm good with it.
And then affordable housing potential, because this is a 5 for I1, right?
Yep. Existing affordable housing, that NA.
There's a little bit there in that.
Oh, in
In
the Milton Hill
in the
House?
Hills House, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe a 2.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of it
Yeah.
there. This is
What
the
about the new section? 50 Elliott didn't have any requirement for
old part
affordable?
doesn't have any, so the new part does.
Oh, we were just talking, oh, okay.
So there's not a lot of units, that's why I gave it a 2. So then I3, district includes unbuilt approved 40B, so that's NA.
No.
Unbuilt projects with affordable, NA. That brings us to J.
Potential to handle.
Parcel frontage is on a 2-lane road, which we're not giving a high number because this is a fairly congested area.
This is really congested back, yeah.
Especially with Steel and Rye. So I would give this like a 2.
Right. I would too.
Do you agree?
Yep.
And then NA on the 4-lane, right? If we're consistent with what we did on Milton Station
Yep.
East,
Doesn't exist? Okay.
right? And then
It's probably an
not a
NA
state roadway.
also.
So I think we do like we did on Milton Station East, we give it a 1.
Yep.
And then hot spot,
1. I would do that.
1. Although it's not quite as hot as Adams
Adams Street,
Street, so
yeah.
maybe a 2.
Yeah, I guess that 2 is fine.
And there hasn't been any traffic studies for this section, so I'd say a 1. Flood risk, I don't believe there's flood risk for these. So these are 5s.
5 and 5. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So that concludes.
We have Milton Station West next.
Yes. Let's see if we can move through that.
Yeah. So that's Unquity House. The height is the same.
Hey, can you total up that column, Tim?
Doesn't work.
It's a little funky because you've got those
NAs.
parcel
Yeah,
size. Parcel size,
Oh,
you have to exclude.
oh, yeah, that's,
I
yeah.
think it's maybe
That's
better
what you're
to
not- yeah,
wait
Wait, yeah.
to do the totals, to get them, well, Tim's figuring it out, but he's more.
Now, this will include Hendry's, the gas station,
Oh, okay, Milton Station West, you're right.
Milton Station West.
Yes, you're right. Right, so Henry's and gas station.
And Steel and Rye.
Steel and Rye.
The cleaner, right? The dry cleaner next to it?
Does it go up to School
And
Street
36,
like that?
not quite
No.
that far, but it does, it's 36 Central.
Yeah,
That whole
but-
building, so that goes almost,
Yeah, but it doesn't go.
Those two families that are in there.
Yes, yeah, it doesn't go there.
Those really should be. Are those anywhere?
those,
Included in any? We gotta include those in the future. If and when we
it's
ever
possible if we could, yeah, that's possible.
change. So 36 Central, and then what about like,
And across the street, Mr. Burke's.
And it's the, where the new El Barrio, the old plate was.
Yeah.
So really that Central Avenue little,
yeah, and Sullivan
yeah.
Insurance?
Okay, so,
I get it.
well, this, so the allowed height being comparable, the allowed height is 4.5 stories, right? And 131 Elliott
is 4 and 5.
is 4 to 5,
36 Central is 4.
but turns to 5 at the back with the topography. So what I would say is, like, it's comparable to existing, you know, for some of the buildings, and for some of the buildings it's higher. But, so maybe it's not a 5, but maybe it's
Yeah.
something like a 4.
Because you've got the plate building, which is lower, and you've got, yeah,
Right.
a couple of other two-story.
But those, I think, don't qualify because they're the minimum lot size.
Yeah.
So, I'd say a 4.
4, okay. I'm good with that.
Allowed height comparable to existing multifamily in parts of town. I would say that's we gave it, probably a 4, like we did with the bridge, I guess is what I'd say. Size, now, I'd say this is a 5 because 131 Elliott's FAR is 1.35 and 36 Central is 1.42, and we're allowing like 1.1, I think. So I would give this definitely a 5.
Oh, building size comparable.
I'd give this the 4 that we gave the bridge. Typology is a 5. Building typology is the open space. I mean, there's more open space required here than there is in some of this existing, so I'd say a 5. And a 5 because there's not much tree coverage here.
Although, you know what, I'm just looking at building typology is comparable to existing. It's sort of a mix, so there are definitely a couple of multifamily housing, But there's some that are just, single-story commercial, so I would give that a 4, or 3 or 4.
I wouldn't do a 3.
And a 4, but not a 5.
Given we have 5s for East
Yeah.
and Bridge.
Yeah,
but
I think, because I think that is more larger
4?
multifamily, but
Okay.
here it's some commercial single-story, so
All right, so a 4
a 4.
on A6. You have that, Tim?
A5.
A5.
I'm sorry.
A5 would be 4.
Wait, no, the typology, you did, sorry.
Yeah.
The typology, you did a 4? Okay, and then the open space is a 5. Okay. And then the tree coverage is a 5? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we're on density. I think
What's the units per acre?
the density is a 5 because we're allowing for the 15. I think it's, if not, it's probably at this height and at this,
What do you have as the density for this area? I have 34.4 units per acre.
so as long as what we're saying is not to exceed, do not exceed the requirements in the statute and guidelines. We gave the others 5 for density in this area.
These are smaller lot sizes though, so it's the unit size that counts higher.
Yeah, it's a little different because 131 Elliott,
There's so much land area there. This is a sort of a,
36 Central. We're really getting credit here just for 131 Elliott and 36 Central because the others are so small that they're not,
Right.
they don't meet their minimum lot size requirements.
right.
So I think you have to think about it as being
Yep,
these,
I get that.
getting the credit stuff. So I think I would keep it with the 5s of
Okay.
the others,
All right.
and the same with the unit capacity. And again, the sub-district, I think it has to be a 3 because it's not big enough on its own.
Tim, do you have that for B123? We've got 553.
Yes, it's, can you see that on the screen?
Great, thank you. Okay. Now, existing land is single family.
So it's
That's a
not.
no.
So that's a 5 because it's not. Land is vacant. I'd say that's a 1 because these are newly built buildings. Does everybody agree? Okay. Existing building value is high. These buildings are brand new, so I'd give it a 1. And district has parcels and or buildings of adequate size to allow additional units without demolition. There's really not a lot of capacity to add any units here because this is the getting credit.
Well, Steel and Rye, you could,
Milton, Steel, or
Maybe Steel and Rye is the only one, I think, that was adequate size, unless there's consolidation.
3?
3, it's fine.
What about the cleaners? Didn't we approve an A&R for the cleaners?
That would make them even
That would
smaller.
be, yeah, so
They would be too
they
small.
would be, yeah.
But they wouldn't have to subdivide, they don't have to
Right,
divide.
yeah,
They
yeah.
can if they want to, but they don't necessarily.
I think they were thinking about an opportunity to sell to the different businesses.
oh,
All right, avoiding historic districts and parcels with historic structures. So,
There's nothing really.
yeah, so I would say these are all 5s. we skip E and get to F. So it is
Already,
it's already, so that's a 5. And the zone for this, so that's a 5.
36 Central is mixed use, yeah.
So mixed use zoning is underway. It's a 1, I guess, because it's already there. That's the way we
Right.
handled the others.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So on F, I have F1 is 5, F2 is 5, F3 is 1. Is that what everybody has? Density level matches existing.
4.
Okay. Dimensional standards match existing. So it's a 4 also because it matches the higher end. Design guidelines in place. There aren't any in this area. So that's a 1. And then it doesn't include unbuilt, so that's a 1. Access to trolley, 5. Within a mile is not applicable. Greater than a mile is not applicable. Bus line is 5. Bike path, 5. Sidewalks, 5. School, 3. I'm just doing it the same as
Yeah.
bridge because it's pretty much the same. Amenities, 5. Amenities within 1 mile, 5. Mixed use required. It's required here, right? So that's a 5. And then allowed.
It's not
not
required, it's
Isn't it? Tim, is it required here?
over, isn't it?
I thought this was one of our mandatory mixed-use districts.
It
Yeah,
has that
so anything
crosshatch.
toward, okay, sorry.
This is our only mandatory mixed use.
Yeah.
I thought the mandatory mixed use was going to be in the,
Village,
It's
right?
that hatched area there, I think, Meredith, if you look at your,
That we can
Yeah,
only
east
have-
and west are mandatory mixed use.
okay, great, all right, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, correct, all right.
okay, so then allowed is NA. Density for affordable housing potential, the density allows for more than 10 units a parcel, so that's a 5. District includes existing affordable, it does, at both 131 Elliott and 36 Central. Again, not a ton of units, so maybe a 3.
3 on that, yeah.
Unbuilt 40B is not applicable. Unbuilt approved, not
Not applicable.
Yep. We get down to vehicle, and I'd say it's the same as what we did for bridge. So
Yeah.
2-lane is a 2, 4-lane is not applicable. And then it's a 1.
Frontage.
This is a little more busy,
State
so
roadway.
I'm sorry, were you on J3?
J3?
I gave a 1.
1.
J4, I think this is a 1 also, or a 2.
We had
It
said
gets pretty
2.
congested.
Yeah,
You
it
want
does
a
get
2?
really, because you've got the people coming over the trolley right there, well.
Right.
I would say a 2, I guess. There's worse hotspots, but it's
Okay.
bad.
And then, no, there are traffic studies that were done with those projects, but I don't know, I'd give it a 2 maybe. And then flood risk, Well, in the ponds, it's right there. But I don't know if these are in the FEMA maps.
I've never seen flood, I'm
I
not
think
aware
the
of.
Sullivan Insurance Building is.
Isn't a
Actually, I don't know
flood.
that for as a fact, but if you
You've
look
got the
behind it,
Jim is
there's
gonna
a-
Got
look
the
it up.
stream that runs behind.
Yeah, the stream is right there, yeah.
I think that would be a very difficult site to build on.
Which one?
The Sullivan Insurance Building?
You would have to just build up. You couldn't.
But I mean, you're, at one
But
point,
you-
your foundation is in the river, the little stream.
Right, you
back there.
can't, exactly, but it's,
Right,
it's right
I
on the
think
road.
it's challenging to build there.
it is.
You wouldn't get a permit to tear it down and rebuild. That was the,
On the existing footprint.
yeah.
So 131 Elliott's not in it. But 36
Not in-
Central is.
Looking at it here.
Yeah, you can see like the parking lot of 36 Central and the rear of that Stevie's building is kind of in the flood zone.
Oh,
right.
interesting. That's,
So then this is a 3. Some is and some isn't. So these both would get 3, I guess. Mm-hmm. And we're right at 10 o'clock, Meredith.
yeah,
Hey.
that was,
So that leaves us with Blue Hills Parkway, East Milton, and then locations that weren't in the final Article
Yeah.
1, but,
yep. So we're almost through what we had
okay.
previously gone through, so.
All right.
Well, that, yeah.
Were we going to do Elliott Street ever?
Yeah, the Elliott Street corridor we all have to do.
Yeah, well, we have Elliott and Blue Hills
Blue Hills
Parkway,
Parkway.
right? Oh, and East Milton. Where's Elliott on? Oh,
And
it's
Mattapan
okay.
Station.
Sorry, they
Yeah,
got
so
scrunched
we do have a few
here.
more. Blue Hills Parkway corridor, Mattapan Station, Elliott Street corridor.
We got a lot more to do.
Yeah. And actually, East Milton Square, we haven't done.
So we have, so maybe we can set the goal of getting all of these done at the next
I think
meeting.
we can. I think,
Bang through 'em.
We're
How
getting
much-
better. We're getting better.
We're getting
Yeah.
better. Well, at least we know when we should be consistent, right?
Yes. yeah.
So
exactly, no, it's,
that, how we're applying the criteria, I think we're getting a better handle on.
oh, here's all the FAO. This is what I was looking for.
That's what I was looking
was on
for
the
too,
other
and I
page.
had it open here
Sorry, it was-
again.
yeah, I had it on the up, on the flip, it was on the back side, so.
I knew we
This
had
was-
it, so.
This was the slide deck that Cheryl had put together. And maybe we can just have this sent out to everybody so everyone has it. And
Yeah, please.
In
Julia
big-
was
in
nice
big
enough to
copy?
print up a really nice copy, maybe?
Yeah,
You
so
could-
maybe we can all have a copy, because trying to have multiple documents open on the laptop is just hard.
Especially when we're all open at the same time.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Just
No,
like
it
that.
Sorry,
really
Tim.
is so nice to be able to look at the maps and, but there, I did have on the
And I
other
had
side
it
of that.
here too, and then
Okay.
here I am flipping through all this.
And here I
All
couldn't
right.
get my town website email.
And that was given to us or a town meeting? I'm sorry, I still don't.
I pulled that sheet,
A couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
when I put this analysis together, I pulled that sheet that came from UTIL originally.
UTL, okay.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and but I highlighted a few things on it, but the underlying data is all came from them, which was, that led up to Article 1.
All right.
but I feel like we're.
Yeah, some of the
moving
other
forward with this.
sheet is just stuff that I looked at separately from Article 1.
No, it looks awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no, very good. So if is there anything else? If not, Tim, did you have anything before we have a motion
Nope.
to adjourn?
All set?
Okay. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I will second.
All in favor, roll call. Sean?
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes?
Maggie?
Yes.
And myself, yes. Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.